What would you do if you were alone in a morgue at 3 a.m. and the body you just finished preparing suddenly opened its eyes? Keep that question in mind as you hear what happened to me. My name is Marcus, and I worked as a morgue assistant at a major city hospital for 2 years. I took the overnight shift from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. because the pay differential helped me afford medical school. Most people think working in a morgue is creepy, but honestly, dead bodies never scared me. They're just vessels, you know? Empty shells. At least, that's what I used to think. It was a Tuesday night, around 1:30 a.m., and I'd just finished preparing a body for the morning autopsy. Standard procedure logging details, taking photographs, securing the toe tag. I wheeled the gurney into the freezer, locked it up, and headed back to the prep room to finish my paperwork. That's when I heard it. A metallic scraping sound, like something heavy being dragged across steel. It was coming from the freezer. I stopped writing mid-sentence and listened. Nothing. Just the hum of the refrigeration units. I convinced myself I'd imagined it and went back to my work. 15 minutes later, I needed to retrieve a file from the storage area near the freezer. As I walked down the hallway, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The freezer door was slightly ajar. I always lock that door. Always. It's protocol, and I'm obsessive about following protocol. I should have listened to my gut and called security right then, but instead, I walked toward it. I told myself maybe the latch didn't catch properly. Maybe I'd been distracted. But I knew better. I pulled the door open fully and stepped inside. The cold hit me immediately, that bone-deep chill that morgue freezers have. Everything looked normal. For bodies on gurneys, all properly covered and tagged. I checked the lock mechanism. It was functioning fine. I was about to leave when I saw them. Wet footprints on the floor. They led from one of the gurneys toward the door, trailing water like someone had just walked out. But here's the thing that made my blood run cold. They weren't my shoe size. They were smaller, and the tread pattern was completely different from my work boots. I backed out of the freezer slowly, my heart hammering in my chest. I went straight to my prep room and locked the door behind me. I tried to calm down, to think rationally. Maybe another staff member had come down without me hearing. Maybe maintenance had been in there. But it was 2 a.m., and I was the only person assigned to the basement level during night shift. I pulled up the security camera feed on my computer, rewound it to 1:30 a.m., and watched the freezer door. Nothing. No one had entered or exited except me. I tried to focus on my work, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. At 4 a.m., I had to go back to the prep room where I'd been working earlier. I'd left the body there, still on the examination table, because I needed to complete some final documentation before moving it to storage. When I walked in, I froze. The body had moved. Not dramatically, it wasn't sitting up or anything like that, but its position was different. The arms were at different angles. The head had turned slightly to the left. And the toe tag. The toe tag showed a completely different name than what was on my chart. That's when I realized I wasn't alone down there. Something was very, very wrong. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the security footage again, this time focusing on the prep room camera. What I saw made me want to vomit. There I was on the screen, working on the body, but I was doing things I didn't remember doing. Moving instruments around, repositioning the body. My movements were jerky, unnatural, like a puppet being controlled by someone who didn't quite understand how humans move. And then I noticed that the footage was recorded 3 hours in the future. I was watching myself do things I hadn't done yet. I didn't wait to find out what happened next. I grabbed my keys, my jacket, and I ran. I didn't clock out. I didn't file my reports. I just left. When I got to my car, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. I drove home, called in sick the next day, and then sent my resignation email. I never went back. A few weeks later, curiosity got the better of me, and I did some research on the hospital. Turns out it was built in 1974 on the site of an old psychiatric facility that operated from the 1920s through the 1950s. That facility had a dark history: experimental procedures, unethical treatments, patients who disappeared from records. The basement level, where the morgue was located, that used to be where they performed electroshock therapy and lobotomies. I still have gaps in my memory from that night. Sometimes I'll be doing something completely normal, like making coffee or driving to class, and I'll have this overwhelming feeling that I've done it before in exactly the same way, with exactly the same movements. Like I'm following a script I don't remember learning. I wonder sometimes if part of me is still down there in that morgue, going through the motions, preparing bodies for autopsies that will never happen. And I wonder if the version of me that left that night was really me at all, or just another copy, another loop in whatever was happening in that basement. I try not to think about it too much, but when I close my eyes, I can still see myself on that security footage, moving in ways that weren't quite human, 3 hours ahead of time, trapped in something I'll never understand.
Imagine working the graveyard shift at a remote gas station when a customer walks in and pays with exact change. Then you discover they died 3 days ago. Look, I'm not the type of person who believes in ghosts or any of that supernatural stuff. I'm a single mom. I work nights because it pays better, and my sister watches my kids while I'm gone. I'm practical. I deal with reality, at least. I used to think I knew what reality was. I'd been working at this gas station for about 6 months. It's one of those places that's literally in the middle of nowhere, 40 miles from the nearest town in either direction. Truckers stop by, occasional travelers, but mostly it's dead quiet, which is fine by me. Gives me time to think, to plan, to just exist without anyone demanding anything from me. My shift runs from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And honestly, most nights, nothing interesting happens at all. But there was this one customer. He started coming in about 2 months into my job, always at 2:47 a.m. I noticed because it was so precise, not 2:45, not 2:50, exactly 2:47. He'd pull up in this old pickup truck, come inside, grab a coffee from the machine, a pack of beef jerky from aisle 3, and a lottery ticket. Same items every time. He'd put them on the counter, pull out exact change, never a penny more or less, and leave. Without saying a word, never made eye contact, never smiled. Just completed his transaction and walked out. At first, I thought maybe he was just shy or didn't speak English well. Some people are like that. But after a few weeks, it started to feel odd. The way he moved was too smooth, too deliberate, and he never blinked. I know that sounds weird to focus on, but once I noticed it, I couldn't stop noticing it. He'd stand there at the counter, and his eyes would just stay open, staring at nothing. Then, one night, I'm driving to work and I pass this pickup truck on the side of the road, abandoned, front end smashed up against a tree, police tape around it. I slow down to look, because you don't see many accidents out here, and that's when I recognize it. Same make, same model, same dented bumper as my 247 customer. I feel this cold sensation in my chest, but I tell myself it's probably just a similar truck. Lots of people drive trucks out here. That night, he comes in. Same time? 2:47 a.m.? Same routine? Coffee? Beef jerky? Lottery ticket. Exact change. But this time, I'm watching him differently. That's when I notice he's wearing the same clothes he always wears. Flannel shirt, jeans, work boots. They're not dirty, but they're not clean either. And when he puts the money on the counter, his hands are ice cold. I know because his fingers brush mine for just a second, and it's like touching something that's been in a freezer. After he leaves, I do something I probably shouldn't. I write down his license plate number, then I Google it. The article comes up immediately. Fatal, single vehicle, accident. Driver died on impact. Date of accident: 3 days ago. Same stretch of road I pass every night. Same truck. And the photo in the article, it's him. Same face? Same flannel shirt? The article says he was on his way home from his night shift at a factory when he fell asleep at the wheel. I'm sitting there behind the counter, staring at my phone, and I realize I can't breathe properly. My hands are shaking. I want to convince myself it's a coincidence, a mistake, someone who looks similar. But I know what I saw. I served a dead man. I took his money. I watched him walk out of my store. The next night, I'm terrified. I consider calling in sick. But I need this job. I can't afford to lose it. So I go in, and I spend the entire shift watching the clock. To 30 a.m. To 40 a.m. To 45 a.m. My heart is racing. And then, at exactly 2:47, headlights in the parking lot. The truck pulls up. He gets out, walks to the door. I want to lock it, to hide, to do anything but stand there. But I'm frozen. He comes in. Same routine. Coffee, beef jerky, lottery ticket. I'm watching him in the security monitor above the counter, and that's when I see it. On the screen, his movements are wrong. He's not walking. He's gliding. His feet don't quite touch the ground, and under the fluorescent lights, he doesn't cast a shadow. When he puts the items on the counter, I force myself to look at him, really look at him. His eyes are empty. Not sad, not tired, just empty, like windows with nothing behind them. He slides the money across to me. I take it. I don't know what else to do. And then he does something he's never done before. He leaves a note. It's folded under the lottery ticket. After he walks out and drives away, I unfold it with trembling fingers. The handwriting is shaky, desperate. It says, "Thank you for seeing me. I didn't want to be forgotten. I quit after that week. I told my sister I'd find a day job, something that paid less but kept me sane." The gas station owner wasn't surprised when I gave notice. Turns out I was the 4th night attendant to quit in 2 months. Nobody wants to talk about why, but we all know. We all saw him. The thing that still haunts me isn't that I saw a ghost. It's that he kept coming back because he needed someone to acknowledge his existence. He died alone on that road, and some part of him couldn't accept it. He just wanted to complete his routine one more time, to feel normal, to feel seen. I still have that lottery ticket. I checked the numbers. It's a winner $5,000, but I can't bring myself to cash it. It sits in my drawer at home, and sometimes late at night when I can't sleep, I take it out and stare at it. The paper is cold to the touch, always, even in summer. And I wonder if cashing it would break whatever connection kept him coming back, or if it would invite something else into my life that I'm not prepared to handle. So it stays there, a reminder that some routines don't end just because we do. And sometimes the dead keep going through the motions because it's the only thing they remember how to do.
What would you do if every security camera in the building showed you standing in the lobby, but you were actually on the roof? And what if you watched yourself on those cameras doing things you'd never do? I spent 20 years as a cop before I took this job. Seen a lot of things. Dead bodies, crime scenes, stuff that would keep most people up at night. None of it bothered me. I prided myself on being rational, analytical, someone who didn't spook easily. That confidence, that certainty in my own perceptions, what made what happened to me so much worse. Because when you can't trust your own eyes, when you can't trust the cameras, when you can't even trust that you're where you think you are, everything falls apart. I'd been working security at this corporate office building for 5 years. 40 stories, downtown location, completely empty at night, except for me. Midnight to 8 a.m., solo shift. The job was simple. Make rounds every hour, check the cameras, make sure doors are locked, respond to any alarms. Boring work, but that's exactly what I wanted after 2 decades of chaos. Predictable, safe, routine. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were always the quietest, no cleaning crews. No late workers, just me and 40 floors of empty offices. Around 3:15 a.m., I'm up on the 30th floor doing my rounds. Everything's normal. I'm checking door handles, marking my log, when I decide to pull up the camera feed on my tablet to check the lobby. Standard procedure. And that's when I see him, me, standing in the lobby, right in front of the main desk. Just standing there, facing the camera doubt. Now, I'm not an idiot. My first thought is maybe it's delayed footage, a glitch in the system. But the timestamp in the corner says 3:16 a.m. current time. I look down at my tablet, then back up at the empty hallway I'm standing in. I'm on the 30th floor. I've been up here for 10 minutes. There's no way I'm also in the lobby. I switch to another camera angle. Same thing. There I am, same uniform, same build, same posture. The figure in the lobby turns slightly and looks directly at the camera. Then it waves. A slow, deliberate wave. Not friendly. Almost mocking my training kicks in. I radio for backup, but all I get is static. I try my cell phone. Same thing. Just white noise. The building's emergency system shows green across the board. No alarms, no malfunctions, everything nominal. But I know something is very wrong. I head toward the elevator, thinking I need to get down to the lobby, confront whoever or whatever this is. But as I'm walking, I check the tablet again. The figure is gone from the lobby. I scan through the other cameras. Nothing. Then I see movement on the 6th floor. There he is again. Me, walking down a hallway I'm not in. I watch as this other me stops at the elevator and presses the button. The display above the elevator doors shows it's going up. Floor by floor. 10, 15, 20, heading straight toward me. That's when the fear really sets in. Not panic, not yet, but this deep, primal understanding that I'm in danger. I've felt it before on the job, that instinct that tells you someone has a gun before you see it, that tells you to move before the punch comes. I should have evacuated the building right then, but I didn't, because part of me needed to know, needed to understand what was happening. 20 years as a cop teaches you to confront threats, not run from them. The elevator dings. 30th floor. I'm standing 15 feet away, watching the numbers light up. My hand moves to my hip where I used to carry my service weapon, but there's nothing there. Security guards don't carry guns in this building. The doors open, slowly, and there's nothing inside. Empty elevator. Empty except for this smell copper and ozone, like blood and electricity. I can hear breathing. Slow, steady breathing coming from inside that elevator. But there's nothing there. I take a step back. Then another. The breathing gets louder, closer, even though nothing is moving. I turn and run. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I run for the emergency stairwell and start going up instead of down, because my instinct tells me not to trap myself going downward. I go up 3 flights to the 33rd floor and pull out my tablet again. Every single camera in the building shows me now. Different floors, different positions. Multiple versions of me throughout the entire building. Some standing still, some walking, some facing the cameras with expressions I don't recognize on my own face. And they're all moving in coordination, slowly, methodically, converging toward the center stairwell. The one I'm in, I keep climbing. My heart is hammering. My breath is coming in short gasps. I'm 52 years old and I'm climbing 40 floors. Because every rational thought in my head is telling me to get to the roof, to get outside, to get away from the enclosed spaces where these things are. When I finally burst through the roof access door, the night air hits me like a slap. I bend over, gasping, trying to catch my breath. The city sprawls out around me, lights twinkling, normal, real, solid. Then I hear the door open behind me. I turn. He's there. I'm there, standing in the doorway. Same uniform, same face, but wrong. Everything about him is wrong. His joints bend slightly too far when he moves. His head tilts at an angle that makes my neck hurt just looking at it. He steps onto the roof, and the way he walks is like watching someone who learned how to move by reading instructions but never actually practiced. And then he speaks. My voice, my exact voice. He says, "Your shift is almost over. I'll take it from here." And he smiles. His mouth opens too wide. His teeth are wrong to many of them, too sharp, arranged in rows that don't make anatomical sense. That's when I realize this thing isn't trying to scare me. It's trying to replace me. It's been practicing, learning, perfecting the imitation. And now it thinks it's ready. I don't remember getting to my car. I don't remember the drive home. When I got there, the sun was coming up, and I sat in my driveway for an hour, just shaking. I called in sick. Then I quit by email. I couldn't go back. Wouldn't go back. 3 weeks later, I ran into my old supervisor at a grocery store. He seemed genuinely confused when I said I'd quit. He pulled out his phone and showed me the shift logs. According to the records, I'd completed my full shift that night. Every round logged. Every camera check documented. All the paperwork I always did was filed properly. The handwriting was mine. The signatures were mine. He showed me the security footage from that night. There I am, on camera, making my rounds, checking doors, sitting at the desk filling out forms. Never leaving my post. Never running. Never on the roof. Calm, professional, thorough. Exactly like I always was. I watched myself on that footage, and I knew with absolute certainty that it wasn't me. But it was perfect. The imitation was flawless. I asked him who's working my old shift now. He said I still am. I've been showing up every night, working the full 8 hours, never missing a day. He asked if I was feeling okay, if maybe I needed to see someone. I told him I was fine and left. I don't know what's working my old shift. I don't know if the real me ever left that building, or if what ran out to the parking lot was something else wearing my face. Sometimes I catch myself doing things I don't remember deciding to do, moving in ways that feel choreographed, speaking in patterns that sound rehearsed, and I wonder if there are more of them now. If the thing on the roof has learned to split itself, to become multiple versions, to spread. I wonder if when people see me at the store or the bank or walking down the street, they're actually seeing me or just another copy going through the motions, perfecting the performance, waiting for its shift to be over so it can pass the role to the next one. The worst part is I'll never know for sure, and neither will anyone else. Imagine working in a massive warehouse, alone at night, when the machinery starts operating by itself, and it seems to be hunting you. Yo. So this happened to me about 8 months ago, and I still can't really wrap my head around it. My name's Deshawn. I'm 29. Used to be a college athlete until I blew out my knee, and I ended up taking this warehouse job because the pay was decent and I needed something stable. Night shift inventory specialist. Sounds boring, right? That's what I thought too. 11 at night till 7 in the morning. Just me in this massive 500,000 square foot distribution center, scanning boxes and updating the system. Easy money. The warehouse had all this automated equipment for forklifts, conveyor belts, sorting machines, the whole deal. During the day shift, there's like 50 people running around, but at night, it's just skeleton crew. Actually, not even a crew, just me. They figured one person could handle the night audit, since everything was supposed to be shut down and locked up. All the forklifts parked in the charging bay, all the systems offline, just quiet and still. That's how it was supposed to be. Anyway, so it's like 1:30 in the morning and I'm in Sector C doing my counts when I hear this sound. An engine starting up. Not like a car outside or anything. I know that sound. This was a forklift. One of ours. Coming from Sector D, which is completely dark because I haven't worked my way over there yet. I stop what I'm doing and listen. The engine's idling. That low rumble you hear when someone's sitting in the driver's seat waiting. But there's nobody else in this building. I checked when I clocked in. I always check. I grab my flashlight and head toward Sector D, telling myself maybe maintenance came in for some emergency repair and forgot to radio me. But when I get there and shine my light around, I see it. Forklifts running. Headlights on. Nobody in the seat. Just sitting there in the middle of the aisle, engine going like it's waiting for something. I walk up to it, reach up to turn the key, and that's when it starts moving. Not fast, slow, deliberate, rolling forward even though nobody's touching the controls. I jump back and the forklift keeps going, turning down an aisle like someone's steering it. I'm watching this happen and my brain's trying to make sense of it. Maybe it's some new remote control tech they installed and didn't tell me about. Maybe it's a malfunction. But then the conveyor belts start up. Section by section, they activate in sequence, creating this path through the warehouse. The overhead lights in Sector D flicker on, then Sector E, then F. Like something's tracking my position and lighting the way. That's when I knew something was controlling the machines. This wasn't random. This was purposeful. The forklift makes another turn, and now it's coming back toward me. I back up toward the office, keeping my eyes on it. The thing's moving faster now, weaving between pallets like it knows the layout better than I do. I should have broken a window and climbed out right then, but I'm thinking if I can just get to the office, I can call my supervisor. Get someone down here to see this. I make it to the office and try the door. Locked. Electronic lock. Needs my badge. I scan it. Red light. Access denied. I scan it again. Same thing. My badge isn't working. I try the emergency exits. They're electronic too, supposed to open automatically during emergencies. Nothing. They won't budge. I pull up the system on my phone to check what's going on, and according to the computer, all equipment is offline. Every single machine shows inactive, but I can hear them. I can see the conveyor belts moving. The forklifts getting closer. I run. I don't know where I'm going, just away from that thing. The warehouse lights start shutting off behind me, section by section, creating this wave of darkness that's following me. I can hear the forklift in the dark, engine growling, forks scraping against concrete. It's faster than me, way faster. I duck into an aisle and hide behind a pallet stack, trying to catch my breath, trying to think. The forklift stops. The engine idles. In the silence, I can hear it right on the other side of the pallets. Just waiting, then I see this shipping container nearby with the doors partially open. I make a run for it, slip inside, and pull the doors shut. It's pitch black in here, can't see anything, but at least I'm hidden. I'm trying to slow my breathing, trying to be quiet. Then I hear it. The forklift pulls up right outside. The engine shuts off. Total silence. I'm standing there in the dark, holding my breath, and I swear I can feel something on the other side of those metal doors. Not just the machine. Something else. Something aware. The forks start to rise. I can hear the hydraulics groaning. They position themselves at door height, and for a second nothing happens. Then they punch through. The metal tears like paper and the forks slam through exactly where my head was 2 seconds earlier. I'd moved on instinct, dropped to the floor, and those forks missed me by inches. They stay there, sticking through the doors, and I can hear something outside. Not the engine. Not machinery. Something that sounds almost like breathing. Like satisfaction. I stayed in that container, pressed against the back wall, not moving, barely breathing, for what felt like hours. At exactly 5 a.m., the lights came back on. All at once, I could see through the tears in the container doors. The forklift was gone. I waited another 10 minutes before I pushed the doors open and climbed out. Everything was back to normal. All the equipment was in its proper place. The forklifts were all in the charging bay, lined up like they'd never moved, except for one, the one that had been hunting me. It was parked in its spot, but the forks had fresh scratches on them, and there were puncture marks in the shipping container that matched perfectly. I finished my shift. I don't know why. Maybe I was in shock. Maybe I needed to prove to myself that I could. When my supervisor came in at 7, I walked straight to his office and gave my 2 weeks' notice. He asked why. I told him I found another opportunity. He didn't push it. 3 days later, they told me I could just go. They'd pay out the notice period. I think they were relieved. I did some research after I left. Found out a worker died in that warehouse 5 years ago. Forklift accident. Crushed between the forks and a wall. Same sector where it all happened. Same model, forklift. The guy's name was on a memorial plaque by the break room that I'd walked past every night and never really looked at. After the accident, they upgraded all the safety systems, added more protocols, more automation. But I guess some things don't care about safety protocols. I work day shift now at a different company. Retail inventory, nothing automated, plenty of people around. I don't do nights anymore. Can't. Every time I hear machinery start up, even something simple like a car engine or an electric cart, I freeze up. My girlfriend thinks I have PTSD from something I'm not telling her about. She's not wrong. How do you explain that you were hunted by a machine that wasn't supposed to be able to move on its own? That it knew where you were, predicted where you'd go, wanted something from you that you still don't understand? You can't, so I don't talk about it. I just stay away from warehouses, stay away from night shifts, and try not to think about what would have happened if those forks had been 6 inches to the left. Because whatever was driving that forklift, it wasn't trying to scare me. It was trying to finish what it started 5 years ago. And I'm pretty sure it's still waiting for the next person to work alone in the dark.
What would you do if a hotel room that burned down decades ago kept calling your front desk at the exact same time every night, and one night someone answered? I've always loved old buildings. There's something beautiful about places with history, with stories embedded in their walls. When I got the job as night auditor at the Grandview Hotel, I was actually excited. The hotel was built in 1932. All Art Deco fixtures and original woodwork. The kind of place that feels like stepping back in time. I'm Christina, 31 history major who never quite figured out what to do with my degree, and I specifically requested the night shift. 11 at night until 7 in the morning, alone at the front desk while the guests slept. It gave me time to explore, to read through the old guest registries in the back office, to appreciate the architecture without tourists crowding the lobby. The hotel had 120 rooms spread across 4 floors. Beautiful place, really, though it had seen better days. Occupancy was usually only about 60%, mostly older guests who remembered when the Grandview was the premier hotel in the city. Working nights there felt peaceful, meditative almost. I'd handle the occasional late check-in, process the day's receipts, respond to guest requests. Quiet work. The kind I preferred. It started on my 2nd week. The phone at the front desk rang at 3:04 a.m. I answered with my usual greeting, but the line was silent except for this faint static, like an old radio trying to find a station. I said hello again. Nothing. Then the line went dead. I looked at the display to see which room had called. Room 304. I stared at that number for a long moment because something about it felt wrong. I pulled up the room directory on the computer. 3rd floor only went up to room 320, but there was a gap in the numbering. The rooms went 302, 305, 306. No 304. I figured it was a system glitch. Old hotel, old phone system, probably just cross-wiring or something. But the next night, same thing. 3:04 a.m. exactly. Phone rings. Room 304 on the display. Static on the line, no voice. After it happened 3 nights in a row, I asked the day manager about it. She got this look on her face, uncomfortable, like I'd asked about something I wasn't supposed to know. She told me not to worry about it, that it was just a quirk of the building's electrical system. But she wouldn't look at me when she said it, so I did what any history nerd would do. I went digging through the hotel archives, found the original floor plans from 1932. Room 304 existed. It was there on the blueprints, same layout as all the other rooms. Then I found the incident reports from 1987. October 15th, 1987. Murder-suicide in room 304. A woman named Elena Cartwright and her husband Richard. Domestic dispute. He shot her, then himself. 3 days later, electrical fire in that room. It spread to 303 and 305 before they contained it. The entire section was gutted. When they renovated, they just removed that part of the floor, walled it off, renumbered the rooms, pretended it never existed, but the phone line apparently still did. And every night at 3:04 a.m., the exact time the murders occurred, it rang. I should have left it alone, should have just ignored it like the day manager told me to. But I couldn't. There was something about that static, something underneath it that sounded almost like breathing. Almost like someone trying to speak but not quite managing it. On my 8th night, when the phone rang at 3:04, I made a decision. I answered it and I waited. I didn't say hello. I just listened. The static was louder this time. And underneath it I could hear something. A woman's voice, distant and crackling like an old recording. She said, "He's here again. Please send help to 3:04. The desperation in her voice made my chest tighten. This wasn't a recording. This wasn't a glitch. This was someone asking for help, and they'd been asking for 38 years, and no one had listened. I should have hung up immediately. Should have called the manager, called the police, called anyone. But instead I said, "I hear you. I'm going to come up there." The static intensified, then the line went dead. My hands were shaking as I put down the phone. Every logical part of my brain was screaming at me to stay at the desk, to not go up to that 3rd floor, to not look for a room that didn't exist anymore. But I couldn't ignore it. Someone needed help, even if that someone had needed help for almost 4 decades. I took the elevator to the 3rd floor. The hallway was exactly as I'd seen it dozens of times during my rounds. Floral carpet, brass sconces, doors numbered in sequence. I walked past 302, then 305. Between them should have been a wall, and there was. Pale yellow wallpaper, a framed print of a sailboat. Nothing unusual, but as I stood there looking at it, the wallpaper started to look wrong. Discolored. Newer than the rest of the hallway, like it had been replaced more recently. I reached out and touched it. The wall was warm, not room temperature, warm, like there was heat behind it. That's when I realized the hallway looked longer. I turned around, and there was more corridor behind me than there should have been. At the end of the hall, maybe 30 feet past where room 320 should be, there was a door. Brass number plate, 304. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The door looked old, original to the building, not like the renovated doors on the rest of the floor. And I could hear something behind it. Voices, arguing, a man and a woman. I walked toward it. I don't know why. Every survival instinct I had was telling me to run, but my feet kept moving forward. When I reached the door, it was warmer than the wall, almost hot to the touch. I could smell smoke, faint but distinct. The arguing behind the door got louder. A woman crying, a man shouting, the sound of something breaking. Then silence. Heavy, terrible silence. I used my master key. My hand was shaking so badly I could barely get it in the lock. The key turned. The door opened. and I was looking at room 304 exactly as it had been in 1987. The furniture was decades out of style. There was a newspaper on the bed, folded open. I could see the date, October 15th, 1987. A television in the corner playing nothing but static. The smell of smoke was stronger here, and underneath it, something copper and organic that made my stomach turn. The phone on the nightstand rang. In that moment, standing in that impossible room, I knew I should leave. I knew I should run back down that hallway and never come back to this hotel. But I answered the phone. The woman's voice was clear now, no static, like she was standing right next to me. She said, "You shouldn't have come here. Now he knows you can see us." Behind me, I heard a man's voice in the hallway. "Who are you talking to?" I spun around. There was a man standing in the doorway, middle-aged, wearing clothes from the 80s, with eyes that were completely empty. Not dead. Empty, like there was nothing behind them, just void. He started to smile, and his mouth opened too wide, and I realized he was going to come into the room, and if he did, I would never leave. I ran. I shoved past him and sprinted down that hallway, and it seemed to stretch forever, doors multiplying on either side, the carpet pattern repeating in impossible ways. When I finally reached the elevator, I looked back. The hallway was normal, short, no extra doors. No room 304, just the wall with the sailboat print. I went back to the lobby. I sat at the front desk until my shift ended at 7. I didn't do my rounds. I didn't answer the phone when it rang at 3:04. When the day shift manager came in, I told her I was quitting effective immediately. She didn't seem surprised. She said I'd lasted longer than most. I pulled the security footage later before I left. Watched myself on the 3rd floor. On the recording, I'm standing alone in an empty hallway, facing a wall, talking to nothing. I stand there for 3 minutes, completely still, my lips moving like I'm having a conversation. Then I run, sprinting down the hallway from nothing, terror on my face, fleeing from empty air. The hotel sealed off the 3rd floor a week later, called it renovations. Those renovations have been ongoing for 8 months now. No work has actually been done. They just don't let guests book that floor anymore, and I still get phone calls. My personal cell phone. Blocked number. Always at 3:04 a.m. I don't answer anymore. But sometimes when it's ringing, I can hear that static even before I pick up, coming from the phone speaker, and underneath it, Elena's voice, still asking for help that will never come. Still trapped in that moment, in that room that doesn't exist, reliving the worst night of her life on an endless loop. And now part of me is trapped there too, because I answered, because I went looking, because I opened a door that should have stayed closed. Some walls exist for a reason. Some rooms should stay forgotten. And some calls should never ever be answered.
Imagine being told on your first day that you're never allowed to go to the basement level of the factory you work in, and then one night, your security badge stops working everywhere except the basement door. My name is Miguel. I'm 38 years old. Before this job, I spent 12 years in the military, did 2 tours overseas, saw things that most people can't imagine. I don't scare easy. I follow orders. I respect the chain of command. So when they told me on my first day as night shift supervisor that I was absolutely, under no circumstances, permitted to access the basement level of the factory, I didn't ask questions. I just nodded and said, "Understood. That's how I operate. You want me to stay out of the basement? Fine. I'll stay out of the basement. The factory manufactured industrial parts. 3 levels, above ground, standard production floor setup, nothing remarkable. My shift ran from 10 at night until 6 in the morning. Most of the work was automated overnight machines running their cycles. Me monitoring systems, doing safety checks, making sure nothing caught fire or broke down. Simple job, good pay. The previous supervisor had quit suddenly, and they needed someone reliable. Someone who could handle working alone. Someone who wouldn't ask too many questions. There were maybe a dozen. Other supervisors rotating through the day and evening shifts. I tried asking a couple of them about the basement when I'd see them during shift changes. Every single one gave me the same look, comfortable, almost frightened, and told me to just follow the rules. One guy, older fellow who'd been there 15 years, pulled me aside during my second week and said, "Miguel, I'm going to give you some advice. Whatever you do, whatever happens, do not go down there. Some doors are locked for good reasons." Then he walked away before I could ask what he meant. 3 weeks into the job, it happened. Power flicker at 2 a.m. Happens sometimes in industrial settings, no big deal. Backup generators kicked in, everything stabilized within seconds. But after that flicker, my security badge stopped working. I tried to access the production floor supervisor's office, denied. Tried the parts storage room, denied. Tried the break room, the maintenance closet, even the bathroom, all denied. My badge wasn't opening anything, except one door. When I walked past the basement access, this heavy steel door at the end of a corridor, nobody ever went down. My badge reader beeped. Green light. Authorized access. For a door I'd been explicitly told I could never, ever open. I stood there, staring at that green light, and every instinct from my military training was telling me this was wrong. This was a test, or a trap, or some kind of malfunction that I should report immediately. I tried calling the day shift supervisor. His number went straight to voicemail. I tried the main office line. No answer. It was 2 a.m. on a Wednesday, so that wasn't surprising, but it meant I was on my own. I could have just stayed in the main lobby, waited for my shift to end, reported the badge malfunction in the morning. That would have been the smart play, the safe play, but I had to know. After 3 weeks of everyone refusing to explain, after that green light flashing like an invitation, I had to know what was down there that scared people who'd worked here for decades. So I made a decision. I opened the door. The stairwell was older than the rest of the factory. Different concrete, different paint, different everything. It felt like walking into a completely separate building. The temperature dropped immediately, not just cool, but cold, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones. At the bottom of the stairs was another door, also steel, also heavy. My badge worked on that one too. Green light, authorized. I pushed it open and stepped into the basement. It was massive, easily as large as the production floors above, but the equipment down here was ancient. Machinery that looked like it hadn't been manufactured since the 1960s, maybe earlier. Assembly lines with manual stations, none of the automation we had upstairs. And paperwork everywhere. Files scattered across workstations, spilling out of cabinets, covering the floor. I picked up one. Employee medical records from 1965. Another one. Incident report from 1968. Worker lost 3 fingers in stamping press. Another. Dozens of incident reports. Injuries, deaths, disappearances. The concrete floor had stains. Dark organic stains that no amount of time or cleaning could fully remove. I'd seen enough blood in my life to recognize the patterns. This place had been a slaughterhouse, dressed up as a factory floor. And whoever had been running operations down here decades ago hadn't cared at all about worker safety. But what I read in those files made my blood run cold. The incidents didn't stop in the 70s. They continued into the 80s, the 90s. The last dated incident report I found was from 2022, 3 years ago. A worker named Thomas Chen, severe lacerations, blood loss, died before paramedics arrived. Cause listed as equipment malfunction, but the handwritten notes in the margin said something else. Containment protocol failed. Do not allow night access to basement level. That's when I heard it. The door I'd come through. It locked. Heavy metallic clunk that echoed through the basement. I ran back to it, tried my badge. Red light. Access denied. I pulled on the handle. Nothing. It was sealed tight. Then the lights started shutting off. Section by section, darkness spreading across the basement, leaving just the emergency lighting dim red bulbs every 30 feet that barely pushed back the shadows, and I heard them. Machinery starting up. Equipment that shouldn't work anymore, that hadn't been connected to power in decades, grinding to life. Assembly lines beginning to move. Stamping presses beginning their rhythmic pounding. And underneath it all, voices. Workers talking, laughing, calling to each other in languages I didn't understand. Sounds of a factory in full operation. But I couldn't see anyone. Just the machines moving on their own and the voices echoing from everywhere and nowhere. Then I saw them in the emergency lighting. Translucent figures, shadows of people going through the motions of work they'd done a lifetime ago. Standing at stations, operating machines, carrying materials back and forth, repeating the same actions over and over in endless loops. Some of them were missing limbs. Some had injuries that should have been fatal, crushed torsos, severed arteries, skulls caved in. They kept working anyway, trapped in the routine, unable to stop. One of them turned and looked directly at me. His face was shredded, one arm ending at the elbow in a jagged stump. His mouth moved like he was trying to speak, but no sound came out except the mechanical grinding of the machines. Then all of them stopped. Every single figure froze mid-motion and turned toward me in perfect unison. Dozens of dead workers, decades of casualties, all staring at me with empty eyes. A figure stepped out of the shadows near the back of the basement. Recent, solid, real. It was wearing the same supervisor uniform I had on, same badge on the chest. As it moved closer to the light, I could see the face clearly. Thomas Chen, the name from the 2022 incident report. The supervisor who'd supposedly died from equipment malfunction. But he wasn't dead. Or he was, and something worse had happened to him. He'd been down here for 3 years, trapped, going through the motions of supervising a shift that never ended, watching over workers who would never clock out. He looked at me and mouthed one word: run. The door unlocked at exactly 6 a.m. I know because I was pressed against it. Had been for hours, listening to the machinery run and the voices call and the footsteps of things that used to be people walking back and forth in the darkness. When that lock clicked open, I hit it so hard I fell into the stairwell, scrambled up the stairs, and didn't stop moving until I was in my car with the engine running. I never went back, not to submit resignation, not to collect my final paycheck, nothing. 3 days later, a courier delivered an envelope to my house. Thick legal documents, a non-disclosure agreement, a settlement check for 6 figures, A polite note explaining that my employment had been terminated due to medical reasons, and that I would receive full benefits and severance in exchange for my signature and my silence. I signed. I took the money. What else could I do? One researched the factory afterward, found old newspaper archives. Between 1952 and 1973, there were 43 documented industrial accidents in that basement. 43 workers who died on the job. The company paid fines, made settlements, but they never shut down production. They just moved it upstairs, eventually sealed off the basement, tried to forget. But the basement didn't forget. Whatever happened to those workers, whatever combination of trauma and tragedy and corporate negligence created that place, it's still there, still running, still trapping anyone who goes down there and doesn't make it out by 6 a.m.